10 celebrity plastic surgery disasters that ruined their looks. Then and now, 2026. They didn't lose their looks overnight. They lost them step by step under applause, pressure, and promises that beauty could always be fixed. Behind the red carpets and flawless filters are decisions that changed faces, bodies, and lives forever. This isn't about gossip or judgment. It's about what really happens when fame meets insecurity and the knife. You're watching Celeb Truth Vault, where we uncover the stories hiding behind the images. Stay with us. Hit subscribe and tell us in the comments when beauty becomes a business who really pays the price. Cardi B. The spotlight doesn't ask if your body can handle it. Cardi B entered popular culture like a force of nature where energy, boldness, and personality became inimitable. In front of the camera, she didn't just appear, she controlled the space. Each appearance was a calculated performance, sharp style, sharp demeanor, sharp features. The public became accustomed to seeing Cardi as an icon of absolute confidence, a woman who dared to do things her own way. But when image becomes an asset, it also becomes a burden. Because the more valuable a brand becomes, the more it is demanded to be perfect, to be innovative, to be captivating. The conflict lies in the invisible but constant pressure, be more beautiful. In an era where a single photograph can be exaggerated into a judgment, a celebrity's body is transformed into a public topic. Curves are no longer details, but standards. Every change, however small, can trigger a wave of comments, doubts, ridicule, or even praise. Cardi once spoke about unsafe beauty choices and warned about the risks, and that very moment gave her story a completely different weight. It's no longer the glamorous language of the red carpet, but the voice from the other side of fame, where beauty sometimes means risk. If millions of eyes scrutinize you every day like a product can, you remain calm enough to stay the same. The consequences extend beyond sensational headlines encompassing lasting costs, health at stake, mental health eroded by the never-ending cycle of not enough, and reputation tied more to appearance than talent. When the public becomes accustomed to seeing a star through their outward appearance, they easily forget that the body has limits and every intervention carries risks, especially when the wrong place, the wrong person, or the wrong materials are chosen. The story becomes an ethical dilemma. Celebrities have the right to choose, but to what extent is the industry surrounding them responsible? And why are there always those willing to continue, despite warnings of the risks? Cardi B's impact on her legacy lies in this contrast. She is an icon of personal freedom, but also proof that freedom in showbiz is never free. The most valuable aspect of her story isn't her viral social media appearances, but her willingness to speak out about the risks when many only want to show off their results. Cardi forces us to reconsider an uncomfortable truth. Modern beauty standards are built on pressure algorithms, and sometimes even the health of the individuals involved. When the body becomes a brand, every beauty decision is not just about aesthetics, but a choice that can leave a lasting mark even longer than the glamour itself. K. Michelle. Her body didn't break overnight. It was worn down little by little. K. Michelle stepped onto the stage with an air of confidence that made people believe she feared no one. Her emotionally rich voice, sharp personality, and provocative image were all part of her entertainment brand. At her peak, she represented an artist who dared to speak her mind, dared to live, and dared to stir controversy. But the reality of showbiz is this: the more prominent you become, the more you are thrust into a competition with no fair judges. Appearance is scrutinized like a scorecard, and curves are transformed into a certificate of worthiness to appear. K. Michelle's conflict didn't stem from a desire to be more beautiful, but from a feeling of not being enough instilled by her surroundings. When beauty standards are repeatedly established as unwritten rules, people begin to think that cosmetic surgery is a reasonable, even mandatory choice if they want to maintain their status. Interventions to enhance one's figure and keep up with trends may initially seem like a small step, but they open the door to a series of larger decisions. And when things become dangerous, the story is no longer about aesthetics. The consequences for K. Michelle are partly what silenced the public because they exposed a dark side that people often avoid: real health risks, long-lasting complications, and a repair process that is far from the glamorous before and after images online. She publicly revealed that she underwent multiple interventions to address the consequences of her previous choices, and her account wasn't meant to shock, but to warn. When an artist talks about physical pain exhaustion and a feeling of powerlessness over their own body, it's no longer about beauty, but about survival. K. Michelle's impact on the legacy lies in the fact that she was not just a hit singer, but also a rare voice that dared to challenge the price of beauty standards. Some remember her for her music, others for her journey facing the consequences. But what matters most is that she transformed her painful experience into a powerful message. She forced audiences to see things differently. Not everyone benefits from cosmetic surgery, and looking better doesn't always mean better. In a world where appearance can buy attention, K. Michelle's story reminds us that health should never be a bargaining chip. Blac Chyna. Her silence spoke louder than any headline. Blac Chyna entered the spotlight with an unmistakable image, bold, sexy, and designed to dominate social media. At her peak, her appearance was more than just a personal look. It was a tool for influence, a form of social capital that propelled her name to fame in the attention-grabbing economy. Every photo, every appearance was measured for views and discussion. Chyna's success was inextricably linked to her ability to captivate the public, and in that world, her physique became the primary language for asserting her position. Conflict arises when beauty standards no longer stop at simply being beautiful, but shift to extreme measures for survival. Algorithms reward exaggeration, and social media has no patience for normalcy. Initial physical changes might be seen as image strategies, but gradually they trigger an internal struggle. The line between personal choice and collective pressure blurs. Blac Chyna is caught in this cycle where each edit is celebrated but also lays the groundwork for even harsher scrutiny. When attention is your livelihood, how much freedom do you have left to say enough? The consequences didn't come in a single noisy collapse, but accumulated through skeptical glances and prolonged judgments. Chyna's appearance, which had once made her famous, became the reason she was stereotyped, even deprived of the right to be seen as a person in transition. The public became accustomed to viewing her through a before-after lens, turning her body into a comparison chart and her life into a series of commentary. When she publicly revealed her journey of undoing, reversing, and changing direction, the reaction was divided. One side surprised, the other skeptical. But that very decision exposed an uncomfortable truth. What the internet celebrates today may be what it condemns tomorrow. The impact on Blac Chyna's legacy lies in her quiet yet decisive shift. Instead of continuing to cultivate an image crafted to please the masses, she chose to redefine herself, even at the cost of immediate attention. Her story isn't a complete denial of the past, but an acknowledgement that there are times when we live up to others' expectations for so long that we forget who we are. In the context of then and now 2026, Blac Chyna becomes proof of a rare truth. The greatest courage isn't changing to stand out more, but daring to step back, shed and confront the gaze when you're no longer playing the role the public demanded. Raven-Symoné. The price of becoming famous too early is often not stated in the contract. Raven-Symoné entered the entertainment world too young to understand the spotlight. Before millions of viewers, she grew up in a world where her smile, body, and every expression were memorized, analyzed, and compared. Early success brought fame, but also froze her image in the public mind as an ideal version that couldn't be changed. As Raven matured, the pressure shifted from talent to whether she could still fit the standards the audience was accustomed to seeing. The conflict is subtle but persistent. Being scrutinized for one's appearance from a very young age distorts body image as if every natural change is a flaw to be corrected. In an environment where appearance is closely tied to career opportunities, early cosmetic interventions are seen as a reasonable solution to maintain a standard image. But this isn't the decision of a free-spirited adult. It's the reaction of a child accustomed to living under judgmental gaze. The consequences aren't a single shocking moment, but extend over the years. Early interventions leave their mark both physically and psychologically, making the journey to adulthood more complicated than for the average person. Raven once shared her feelings of being deprived of the right to grow up naturally, with her body becoming a topic of discussion even before she was old enough to make her own decisions. In the public eye, her changes were interpreted as deviant, while few questioned the underlying reasons. When viewers only see the results, they easily forget that each of those choices was made within a context of unbalanced power dynamics and awareness. Raven Simonet's legacy is therefore not solely tied to her roles or television achievements, but to a broader story about the price of early fame. She became living proof of how the entertainment industry can shape, even control, a person's relationship with their own body. In the context of then and now 2026, Raven's story forces viewers to reflect: not all change stems from vanity, and not all personal choices are made under fair conditions. Her legacy lies in making people realize that sometimes what is most hurt is not appearance, but the right to grow and accept oneself in the natural rhythm of life. Doja Cat. Becoming more beautiful isn't always an evolution. Sometimes it's an escape. Doja Cat emerged from the pop era with an unpredictable energy, at times rebellious, at times cool and aloof, at other times transforming herself into an idea rather than a specific person. Her success didn't come from pleasing the masses, but from her ability to make the masses follow her lead. Doja knew how to make her image an extension of her music, each appearance a new version, as if she were constantly rewriting the rules of beauty and attractiveness. To the public, she was both a star and a visual performance where her body clothing, camera angles, and symbols were all used to tell a story. But Doja Cat's dilemma lies in this: when you transform yourself too much, people no longer allow you to stand still. The media wants new Doja every week. Social media wants perfect Doja every day, and both reward extremism with interaction. At one point, Doja publicly admitted to cosmetic procedures like breast reduction and liposuction, and that frankness both liberated her and dragged her into another vortex. People started counting her body like they counted streams. Compliments became standards, standards became pressure, and pressure operates on its own without anyone ordering it. If the whole world constantly scrutinizes every centimeter of your body, will you even remember that your body was once just a body? The consequence isn't necessarily a sensational accident, but rather the feeling of being robbed of ownership of your own story. Once people believe they have the right to judge every change you live, in a state of being watched today, praised for being on trend, tomorrow criticized for being over the top, and the day after dissected like a news story. The price of this game isn't just recovery time, health risks, or periods of unwanted bodily reactions. The price is also the exhaustion of having to explain yourself to people who have never lived a single day in your life yet act as if they have the right to judge. For Doja, any change in appearance can be seen as a matter of personal freedom, but the public always turns it into a massive opinion poll where the results change according to the mood of the internet. The impact on Doja Cat's legacy is therefore unique. She leaves behind not only music, but also a debate about self-determination in the age of visual imagery. She represents a generation of artists who dare to speak their minds, dare to be proactive, dare to defy expectations, but also face the reality that the more freedom is openly expressed, the more it is controlled by prejudice. Doja's story is not an indictment of aesthetics, but a reminder that the body is not an unlimited stage. You can change to feel more true to yourself. But if the motivation is to escape judgment, you will only move to another prison more beautiful, more polished and harder to escape. Nina Leakes. No one is prepared for the whole world to judge their face. Nene Leakes became a phenomenon not because she tried to blend in with the crowd, but because she always stepped into the frame as if it belonged to her. On reality TV, she was sharp, intelligent, knew how to deliver lines at the right time, and transformed an ordinary moment into a memorable one. To viewers, Nene was energy confidence, the kind of woman who doesn't ask permission to shine. But her peak also meant a cold reality in reality TV. What's sold isn't just the story, but the image. And when images become a commodity, it brings with it unspoken but unspoken demands. The conflict stems from the trap of maintaining appearances. Each season, each behind-the-scenes photo, each close-up shot is a public test. People don't just watch what Nene says, they scrutinize how she looks, comparing her to the previous year or even the previous episode. In that environment, improving one's appearance over time is no longer simply about beauty. It's more of a defense mechanism, an attempt to control something you believe if you let go will turn around and hurt you. Gossip. Nene understands how ruthless cameras can be, and she understands the internet is even more ruthless. The consequence isn't necessarily an immediate disaster, but rather a gradual shift in public focus. Instead of simply mentioning her charm, intelligence, or stage presence, many people make her appearance the first point of conversation. The price lies in living in an endless then-now loop where every change is judged as a testimony. Praise is tiring, criticism is tiring, and silence is even more exhausting. And when you become an iconic figure, the scrutiny intensifies. The audience feels entitled to reclaim their favorite version, even if the person involved has moved on to a different stage of life. Nene Leakes' legacy is therefore both brilliant and bittersweet. She remains one of the faces that shaped the appeal of modern reality TV, strong, fearless, and unwilling to be diminished. But the story surrounding her appearance also exposes the dark side of the industry. It makes people believe they must constantly alter themselves to remain popular. And most importantly, Nene didn't need to change to prove her worth, but the pressure of the game made maintaining her image a part of her life. If there's one lesson left after all this, it's this. When you've lived under the camera for a long time, true freedom isn't about how you look, but about daring to decide that you won't be defined by it. Lil' Kim. It wasn't the spotlight that changed her, but the way the world had looked at her for too long. Lil' Kim was once an unmistakable icon of hip-hop, bold, sharp, and so confident that she defied all norms. At her peak, Kim didn't just rap, she defined style. Each appearance was a statement of power, sexuality, and control over her own image. The public was familiar with a Lil' Kim who had strong features, an intense aura, and a beauty that needed no permission to exist. Success came quickly, fiercely, and left a then image deeply ingrained in the collective memory, a mold that audiences unconsciously demanded to be preserved forever. Conflict arises when time passes, but public memory does not. In an industry harsh on women, especially black women, the pressure to maintain peak status becomes a burden. Each new photo is juxtaposed with the past, each small change magnified as evidence of a decline. Faced with this relentless wave of comparisons, cosmetic interventions gradually emerge as a way to regain control of one's image, not to shock, but to escape the shadow of one's own past. If the world only loves the old version of you, what will you do to survive? That question hangs between fame and insecurity, between the desire for acceptance and the need for peace of mind. The consequences extend beyond mere physical appearance. The narrative is rewritten. Instead of focusing on music legacy and influence, public opinion shifts to before and after, turning faces into headlines and individuals into subjects of scrutiny. Each appearance sparks controversy, some lament, others judge, and the internet never forgets. The price paid is not just health risks or mental exhaustion, but the loss of artistic legacy overshadowed by superficial discussions. When images are detached from their stressful context, it's easy to forget that these decisions were made in an unforgiving environment. Lil' Kim's now is therefore confrontational. She stands there not as a copy of the past, but as a testament to the price of enduring fame. Kim's legacy is not just about hits or pioneering style, but also a wake-up call about how the industry and the public treat women's transformation. Her story reminds us that beauty is not immutable, and collective memory is sometimes more cruel than time. When history demands that you stand still to be loved, the greatest courage may simply be to keep moving, even as each step is scrutinized under the spotlight. Tamar Braxton. Everyone listened to Tamar sing, but not everyone left her alone. Tamar Braxton appeared in public like a flash of lightning, fast, bright, and always capable of changing the rhythm of the room. On stage, she captivated audiences with her powerful voice and perfectly timed bursts of emotion. On television, she was so authentic, sometimes too authentic, the kind of person who couldn't hide her fatigue or joy just to look better on camera. At her peak, Tamar didn't need permission from anyone to be the center of attention. But the closer the lights got, the more ruthless the cameras became. And in a world where every frame was cut into memes, her appearance began to be treated as part of a script rather than simply as a human body. Then the silent war begins, the war against voices that never stop. A seemingly harmless comment can become thousands of copies overnight. Reality TV exaggerates every detail. Social media turns every change into proof, and audiences are accustomed to demanding that artists maintain a certain old familiar version so they feel safe. In this context, choices about beauty or cosmetic surgery, whether stemming from personal needs or a desire for self-confidence, are no longer private matters. They are dragged into a collective judgment, where people prefer to pass judgment rather than listen to reason. The price Tamar paid wasn't a single obvious collapse, but rather a gradual day-by-day erosion. You can see it in how people talk about her. Instead of mentioning her voice, they talk about before and after photos. Instead of discussing her music, they discuss her features. The frightening thing is that this cycle fuels itself. The more she's scrutinized, the more she wants to control her image. The more she tries to control it, the more intensely she's scrutinized. And in the middle of this vicious cycle is an artist struggling to maintain her career while still living as a person who is sometimes weak, sometimes tired, and sometimes wants to disappear from the noise. Tamar Braxton's legacy, therefore, is not just about explosive moments or controversial appearances. It's the story of a woman scrutinized for so long that every change is assigned a meaning. Then is the version the public wants to see. Now is the version Tamar is trying to live authentically to survive. And the lesson lies in the gap between the two. When appearance becomes the measure, talent is easily diminished. When attention becomes the rule, freedom becomes a luxury. Tamar still stands there, still sings, still speaks, and that is perhaps her strongest resistance, not letting the noise of the world define who she is. Kenya Moore. The beauty that once propelled her to the top is also the very framework that prevents her from stepping outside it. Kenya Moore appeared before the public with a title that defined all expectations: beauty queen. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight, Kenya's body and face were no longer just her own, but became a symbol of perfection on display. Success came with praise, but that praise also carried an unspoken condition: maintain that image for as long as possible. Television, the red carpet, and social media all reiterated the same message. Beauty is an asset, and assets should not be allowed to deteriorate. The conflict begins when time does what it always does. It changes everything. For a beauty queen, natural change isn't seen as a life process, but as a loss. Each of Kenya's appearances is juxtaposed with her own glorious past, as if the audience has the right to demand an immutable copy. In that environment, beauty decisions aimed at maintaining confidence and comfort in front of the camera become a survival choice. But survival within a perfect frame always comes at a price. When the whole world loves you only for a fixed version, whom will you choose to be loyal to, them or yourself? The consequences didn't come as a dramatic fall, but as a distortion of the narrative. Kenya's appearance became the starting point for every discussion, sometimes overshadowing the intelligence, strength, and personality she brought to each frame. Every change was exaggerated, every decision scrutinized as an excuse. The price here wasn't just health risks or recovery time, but being trapped in an inescapable then versus now loop. When the public becomes accustomed to comparisons, they forget that people aren't photographs. They live, they change, and they have the right to do so without permission. The impact on Kenya Moore's legacy lies in this bitter paradox. She will be remembered as a beauty icon, but her story also exposes the dark side of that very icon. A beauty queen is celebrated for her beauty, yet punished for daring to step outside the mold that title creates. In the context of then and now, 2026, Kenya represents the uncomfortable truth when appearance is elevated to the ultimate standard. It can swallow up all other values. Her legacy is not just the crown or the television moments, but a reminder that true beauty lies not in maintaining a consistent image, but in the right to change without being redefined each time one looks in the mirror. Michael Jackson. No one has ever looked back at themselves from the world as much as they have. Michael Jackson entered music history as a phenomenon that transcended all boundaries. At his peak, he was not just a singer or dancer, but a global benchmark for entertainment stardom. Every dance move, every facial expression became a cultural icon. The public loved Michael for his extraordinary talent, but also unconsciously locked him into the image of eternal youth, where his face, skin, and physique were expected to remain unchanged by time. When his success reached unparalleled levels, his appearance ceased to be a secondary detail and became an inseparable part of the legend. Michael Jackson's conflict wasn't a noisy scandal, but rather a simmering, prolonged one. He lived in a world where every small change was exaggerated, analyzed, and speculated upon. The pressure to maintain his image in front of millions of eyes turned his body into a battleground between personal needs and public expectations. Over time, cosmetic procedures were no longer seen as private decisions, but as evidence for a series of fabricated stories. The media turned his face into an endless topic, and the public debated then versus now just as much as they debated his music. The greatest consequence lies not only in the changes to his appearance, but in how his legacy has been obscured. For years, the story of Michael Jackson's face and body overshadowed his unprecedented artistic contributions. He became the object of scrutiny, instead of being recognized as an artist struggling with immense fame. Each new photograph sparked speculation, each appearance brought with it judgment. The price was not just health or mental exhaustion, but the deprivation of the right to age normally in public. The impact on Michael Jackson's legacy is therefore both tragic and thought-provoking. He remains the king of pop, but at the same time he is a testament to the dark side of absolute adoration. His Then and Now 2026 story reminds us that when a person is elevated to the status of an icon, they are more likely to be treated as an exhibit than a living being. Michael's legacy lies not only in his music and dance, but also in the bitter lesson about fame. The world can love you so much that it forgets you also need to change to be hurt and to exist outside the expectations they themselves have created. Fame promised perfection, but it delivered pressure, scrutiny, and irreversible choices. These stories show how beauty standards, money, and constant judgment can push even the most powerful celebrities toward decisions they may never fully escape. Some viewers see personal responsibility. Others blame surgeons willing to say yes, and many point to an industry that profits from insecurity while calling it empowerment. At Celeb Truth Vault, we don't tell you what to think, we ask you to look closer. When cosmetic surgery goes too far, who should be held accountable? The celebrity, the doctor, or the system that rewards extremes? Your answer might reveal more than you expect.